After you translate the natural programs into ADS binary format and convert the ADABAS data into relational data, you need to transfer the programs and data to the target machine where they can run, such as ZOS or Linux Unix. Transferring the translated programs to the target platform is called deployment. ADS provides two methods for deploying natural programs onto a target machine. In command line mode, the deploy command is entered into the command line of Windows or Linux Unix. This uses FTP to translate the binary output of the natural translation process to a specific directory on the target machine where the translated program will run. As mentioned before, the name of the library and its contents on the target machine will usually be the same as that on the development machine. The second way of deploying natural programs onto a target machine is called IDE mode. After using the ADS IDE to translate the natural program, click on the deploy icon on the top line of the IDE. This uses FTP to send the translated program to the target machine. The converted relational data must also be sent to the target machine. The Data Migration System, DMS, creates scripts that you can run in order to unload the old ADABAS data, create new relational tables in the target relational database, and load the data into the target relational database. When the programs and data are on the target machine, they are ready to be executed in the target environment. We will describe three tasks that you can do to configure the target environment. First, defining security for user logon and file access. Second, using the adsconf utility that runs on Windows that transfers runtime parameters that you select to the target machine. And third, specifying runtime parameters in a ZOS file that ADS reads when it starts. It's important to define logon and file access security values for the environment. In addition to the standard security facilities such as RACF and RRSAF on ZOS and LDAP on Linux Unix, ADS has a security program you can use to create profiles that define levels of security access. By associating users and files with these profiles, you can configure with precision who can access what files, both during online and batch applications. On ZOS, the ADS security program creates a binary file that is referred to by the ADS SEC DD card and is loaded by the ADS runtime at startup. The ADS security program also has a batch program that converts security files from the natural environment to a format that the ADS security program can use. ADS also has an online program called adsconf that runs on Windows or Linux Unix that you can use to configure one or more ADS target environments. You start the program by double-clicking on cwa/bin/adsconf.exe. After starting the adsconf program, you define a target environment by its IP address and port number. You give the target a name, connect to it, and then define parameters that ADS uses when executing programs. Here we see a portion of the initial adsconf screen that you can use to define a target environment. For each target environment, you give it a name and specify its IP address and port number. Click on the adsconf icon on the upper left part of the screen and assign a name and specify its IP address and port number. For Linux, Unix, and Windows, this is the IP address and port where the Obvius server is running. Its default port is 7576. For the mainframe, this is the IP address and port number of the mainframe's FTP server. Click on Connect, and then adsconf will put the runtime values in the correct place on the target machine. For example, here we are changing the default values for several limits, such as buffer size. On ZOS, you can configure the execution of the ADS runtime by using a parameter file. Some of these ADS parameters are the maximum number of libraries that can hold ADS compiled bytecode. For the DB2 that ADS uses, you can specify its subsystem name, its default plan name, and its default dynamic plan name. Whether to use RACF or not, the maximum number of concurrent user subtasks available in interactive execution mode, ADS's TCP/IP port number, the trace level to use for logging, and whether this server will be running in batch or interactive mode. The ADS starter task for ZOS reads these parameters when it starts and uses these values when it runs. After the translated programs and converted relational data have been transferred to the target machine, the new programs with their new data can be executed. On the mainframe, start the ADS started task. On Linux, Unix, or Windows, start the Obvius server. You can do work under ADS by running batch jobs and by invoking transactions from a PC web browser or a PC 3270 emulator. We will show here how to use a PC web browser to invoke a transaction. Start by pointing a web browser to the URL where the local Java application server is running, such as the following URL. The ADS web application running on the Java application server communicates with the ADS runtime system on ZOS, or the ADS Obvious server that is running on Linux Unix. After entering your user ID and password at the Logon screen, you will see the ADS transaction screen. Then enter the program name that you want to execute and the library that it is in. The program's transaction screens will then appear in the browser, and you will be able to interact with a new version of the program just as you did when it was a natural ADABAS program. You can also execute transactions on ZOS by using a PC 3270 emulator. This communicates with the ADS VTAM monitor running on ZOS that in turn communicates with the ADS runtime starter task, where you log onto ADS. Using this method, ADS can be configured to associate transaction IDs with programs. After entering a transaction ID for a program, you will see the screen for that transaction. You will then be able to interact with the program the same way as you did when it was a natural transaction. You can also run natural programs in batch mode. On ZOS, this is done by submitting a job with JCL that specifies the program and the relational and flat files that it uses. On Linux Unix, you can use the ADS runtime mode facility to run batch jobs.